Good evening, everyone. I'll call the meeting of the Mayor and City Council to order at 6 p.m. Agenda item number 2, Van Dusen Roadway Improvement Project, Department of Public Works, with presentation by Century Engineering.
Other than other streets that we normally have in the city, I feel that I have to keep you abreast of all that is going on because it is 1.6 miles. We just finished up paving today, maybe a third of a mile. And so it is a bit of a larger project. Some of the items to keep you aware of and the public updated is the current concept plan, the ongoing topographic and boundary survey, and this is undertaking of, as I said, 1.6 mile improvement that will include new sidewalks, crosswalks, guardrails, upgrades to signals, paving repairs and new paving, revisions to the current traffic patterns, stormwater management, new drainage, and other items as may be necessary. The Department of Public Works hopes to phase these improvements. The first phasing beginning at Conti Road, where the county hopes to upgrade that intersection for us. So if we recall, when we were at a meeting at Overlook, we were writing the county, asking them to extend the sidewalk down in front of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, all the way down to the Janoski property. And I was notified that they would undertake that for us and hopefully complete the upgrades to the signal and that sidewalk portion, which will now connect all the way down to the Islamic Temple, okay, along Conti Road. And that is to be completed in the summer of 2025. So from that intersection at Conti Road, the first phase would extend to Cherry Lane. Okay? There's limited drainage improvements there in that phase. Thus, we feel that because we don't have to throw so much in front of the county, just one little piece of storm drain as currently is proposed, that the project should move fairly fast there. The second phase of the project from Cherry Lane to the south side of 198 will require stormwater management and lots of new drainage. That we're also going to be dealing with the Maryland State Highway. So I look at that project, that portion of the project, taking a lot longer in reviews that are out of our control. The third phase will begin on the north side of Route 198 and extend to Sandy Springs Road. So that's a small piece, and we may move that up as the other ones are going through the review. With me tonight is Kelly Cosino, the project engineer with Century Engineering, and she would like to present her report and findings to you. And thank you very much.
Thank you. So we did a concept study for Conti from for Van Dusen, from Conti to Old Sandy Spring, which is that section right up there, about 1.6 miles. And we looked at all of the things that he just mentioned. We were looking at the existing infrastructure and then any future upgrades that would be needed to meet standards. So we were looking at ADA requirements. We were looking at drainage issues, clogged pipes, that sort of thing as we were going down. Some things that we saw that were missing were like handrails next to sidewalks with steep slopes, that sort of thing. So we were looking for a lot of pedestrian sorts of things. We were also looking at the traffic signals, the traffic operations. So while we were out there, we did see a good bit of aggressive driving. We also saw some issues with signal phasing and detection. So with the signal detection and phasing, those are kind of maintenance issues. So we sent those to Tim and he is taking care of those. But then the other things are what we're looking at the projects for. So it was signing and pavement marking. We wanted them to meet the MUTCD, which is the federal requirements. We also wanted them to meet driver expectancy. So if the drivers understand what's going on in front of them, they're more likely to do what you want them to do and not hit anything, not be aggressive, follow the rules of the road and the people around them. So that's a safety sort of thing that we were looking at as well. We were reviewing all of the ped and bike facilities that you had out there, specifically the ramps and the widths of the sidewalks, where sidewalks maybe don't exist, but you can see a path for them. We were looking for things like that. And then obvious connections. So is there a piece of sidewalk missing that would be beneficial to have? Bus stops. So there's a good amount of bus stops throughout the corridor. Quite a few of them don't have appropriate bus pads, and some of them don't have sidewalk that go up to them. So we were looking at those things as well. And with the bus stops, we were also looking at their placement. Now, to move a bus stop, you'd have to work with the bus company, of course. So that takes a little bit more time. But would it make sense to shift it down the road or put it where there is currently sidewalk and not a drop off behind it that you'd have to protect? Those sorts of things is what we were looking at while still being able to let traffic go down the road. And then the traffic barrier and drainage. So that's the guardrail. So the guardrail is going down. Most of this section doesn't meet standards because it's been out there a long time and standards have changed in the last 10 years. And that's part of why the guardrail doesn't meet. So it's just bringing it up to the new standards. And then the drainage features are, the drainage has been out there a long time too. So does it need to be cleaned out? What needs to happen there? Then we looked at each of the intersections. I'm not going to go through all of them, but that was really just looking at the operations of the intersections. Are they operating properly? If they're not, is it an easy fix, or is it something that we have to do some sort of infrastructure changes, which would be like putting in pedestrian signal heads. Some of the signals didn't have the proper ped heads. So that sort of thing. So we're not looking at necessarily rebuilding all the signals, although they have been out for a long time, but what is needed to maintain the pedestrian traffic as well. And then environmental issues. So we wanted to see if we were to do these projects, what would it entail? How would we need to get permits? How much time is that going to take? And that's going to definitely affect when we can construct. So as Tim alluded to, we kind of broke this into pieces. And the way that we broke it into pieces happened to go with the geometry of the road, which is quite nice. So the first is the things that Tim has already mentioned and is working on. So that would be the Conti upgrading that signal, which it sounds like you're working with the county for, and then also improving the signal detection of those 4 signals that we sent to you, and that appears to be done as well. So starting at Conti, from Conti to Church was the first section that we think could go rather quickly. So we deemed this as short-term. If it were funded for design, this could be in construction next year pretty easily, because it's really mostly resurfacing and sidewalk work is what we're proposing for that section. So down just north of Conti, there's 2 sections where the lane configuration is confusing. So if you're going southbound north of Conti, you naturally end up in the left turn bay. And then you have to get over to stay in the through lane. You never want that to happen. That's the driver expectancy. So with some pavement marking changes, we can easily push them into the through lane and then make them get over into the left turn bay, which is what drivers expect to do. The other odd thing that's out there is if you're going northbound, there's 2 lanes, but there's no need for the 2 lanes. So if we're going to resurface this, we could also remove one of those lanes, shift everything over so that it's centered. You'd get a shoulder on each side of the road, and then that would also line up the left turn bays at Conti a little better, which helps with left turn movements. You can see past a left turner in front of you. So there's some safety improvements in that. So that's what we're looking at doing there. That would be pretty much a resurfacing project and just new pavement markings. So as far as approvals, it would be yours to approve. And then some sidewalk work. The second location that we saw some odd pavement markings was by the Laurel Medical Center. There, if you're in the through lane, when you're coming up from Conti going northbound, you have the 2 lanes. The 2 lanes go to 1 lane, and then it widens out to 2 lanes again. But with those 2 lanes, the left lane is the through lane, and the right lane is a bypass lane in case there's a left turner. So why not have that be a left turn lane? And then there is the medical center, and there's a entrance that's a little farther down, Laurel Park Road, I believe is the name of it. We could either make it a left turn lane for the medical center or a 2-way center, which is one of those where you can make a left in either direction. If we did that, then that would also remove the lefts from southbound and get them out of the way, which then meets driver expectancy. People become less aggressive. It helps with speeds and just irritation if you can get these sorts of things out of the way. Then there's some pedestrian improvements really along the whole corridor, but Olive Branch would have those. And then south of Cherry, there is a striped median that's currently out there today. So what we're proposing is to make that a raised median and kind of close up the road. So then what this would do is then if you're going north or south, right there, it's very, very wide, which encourages you to go faster. If we close it down and make it truly 1 lane in this direction, median 1 lane in this direction, that's some traffic calming. And so those 4 improvements, along with any sidewalk, signing, that sort of thing, that would be the first phase that we could potentially get out next year. The second phase would be from Cherry to Old Sandy Spring. Now this one, as we get into this, right here at Laurel Oaks Lane, it would be connecting that sidewalk into the existing sidewalk in that community. Now, the existing sidewalk in that community is not in the city right away. So we'd have to work with the right of way that's in. I believe it's the communities, is what you were thinking? Yes, okay. So that's part of why this is in the second group, because we'd have some coordination with that to see, do you really want this? Are you okay with whatever? Sidewalk along the southbound side of Van Dusen, and this is between Laurel Oaks and South Arbory. This piece, a good amount of this would be on the shoulder, the existing shoulder. So one thing that would do is tighten up the road slightly. That would give some traffic calming to the drivers, but it would also provide sidewalk for the pedestrians who don't have any sidewalk at this point. So it's sort of doing both things that you would want for the pedestrians out there with the traffic calming and help with the pedestrian connectivity. Also in this section, there are medians that are painted medians that exist. So this would also be putting in those raised medians on either side of South Arbory, which then will also go to Arbory Court. So narrowing that down to trying to reduce this, give some traffic calming to the corridor. And then the section between Arbory Court and 198. This section is difficult. There's just a lot going on here, and it's confusing to the driver. So what we're proposing is just to make it less confusing, make it very clear as you're driving through here where you need to be. So if you're going northbound, you go from 1 lane to 4 lanes and you get no guidance. And that is very undesirable. And yes. So we're proposing a median from just connecting the existing median down to Arbory Court for one. And then either we can do it painted or we can do it as a raised median as well. We're push the through traffic, keep them in 1 lane, direct them into the through lane. And then even if most of them are going left, we don't want them to naturally end up in the left. Thank you. Thank you guys for being patient with me. Hang on. All right. So as you're going southbound, what we're proposing to do is change the southbound lanes to a double left and a through lane. The volumes, we did some traffic analysis at this intersection. It would work, but we'd have to get the state to agree to it. So that's going to take some time, hence this one being in the second group. If they agree to it, the modification to the signal would really just be the signal heads on the southbound side. We'd have to change. It wouldn't be a very expensive change to their signal. If we have 1 lane going through, we can keep the 1 lane the entire length of it, have 198 merge in like it does today instead of kind of into that right lane. That would be traffic calming. On this proposal, we didn't show it, but that shoulder we could even narrow down, kind of narrow everything down. You are now entering Laurel. You are not on 198 anymore. You need to slow down. This is a 30-mile-an-hour road, and just make it very clear to the driver, you're on a different road now. And if you kind of a gateway into this. So that, and then we would still allow, because we have the pavement, a right turn onto Arbory Court, but it would be 1 lane and then you get over into a bay to make that right turn. So that would be there. And then Old Sandy Spring Road, there it would be pedestrian improvements again. So just narrowing things down and allowing the pedestrians connectivity throughout the intersection. Then the long-term improvements, these would be things that really would take some time. They'd be very nice improvements, but the coordination would be more. One is the sidewalk south of Conti connecting into the existing sidewalk. That's not what you were referring to that the county's going to do? Okay. Okay. So here on Van Dusen in the county portion, there's sidewalk and there's a bike lane that ends. And then we have the hiker biker trail and sidewalk that begins on the north side of Conti. This would connect those two. So then the bike connectivity and the pedestrian connectivity would be there. If you go through that section, you can see people are using it. Like there's definitely trails. I don't know if it's bikes or pedestrians, but it's definitely being used and it's highly vegetated. And part of why this is in the long-term section is there's environmental impacts here. You're going to have to do some stormwater management through here. And if it were connected with a project that's more on the county section, the way that the drainage works would work better for it to minimize those environmental impacts. Our entire project is on the other side, so this one sort of stands alone when it comes to drainage. So it makes it tricky. And then the last one is there's existing sidewalk on the north side of Van Dusen. This is between Cherry and Arbery Court, but it's 4 feet wide. So at first, widen it a foot, it makes sense, meets ADA standards. When you go out there, there's utility poles right behind, there's a steep slope right behind. It's a long stretch. So when you start putting a foot for a long stretch, you start getting into environmental things. So it gets to be a larger project. So this too would be really nice to do. It would be great for the people who are walking through there, but it would take more to get it done. And that's why it got pulled out. Now, if we wanted to put this in, we could and kind of see what we want to do with the utilities and the back slope, but it's tricky. Now, when we were looking at this, because of the environmental impacts that it would have, we did look at some pervious sidewalk, and that could be one way to deal with those environmental things. But then again, that still has to go through the county, I believe, to get the improvement. So we're talking a more long-term improvement with this one. And then this slide is just a quick list of everything that I just went through. So that's my presentation, if you have any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So this was the study that was done based on the traffic study authorized by council last year, correct?
Yes.
So like you said, this is just the concepts. This isn't what would
Yes.
finally be there. The next step would be for it to go to an RFP process for design.
Yes.
And then we would do another RFP to put out the bid and make the work happen.
Correct. And with the design, we could look at designing the short term or both together. With
Okay.
design, it's not much difference in between. It's the construction that's really the coordination and all of that that's going to take more time. So we can just separate them out for the coordination.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear so that none of this is final. Everybody
Right.
is going to have questions, but this is just concepts. So with that, I'll open the floor to brief questions from the council. Councilman Simmons?
Yes, thank you for all that hard work. There really is a lot there, and it is great to see the city doing this because that's definitely a north-south corridor for the city, opposite sort of Route 1, and with different things that have happened along the way, those lanes definitely, I know I weave in and out all the time, sort of going through the area. So as you were saying, yes, that needs to be, I'm like, yes, absolutely. A question on the sort of the hiker biker trail sidewalk side, and you sort of alluded toward the end, but if I understood correctly with this, would there be sort of end to end from Sandy Spring to even all the way down to Conterra or sort of Virginia Manor, whatever that last terminating point is? Or would there still maybe be a couple missing pieces for somebody who wanted to walk or bike or anything like that?
On the same side of the road?
Yeah, I think it's the east side of the road is where the trail is, yeah, or sidewalks.
With the sidewalk that we were proposing between Cherry and, not Cherry, was it this sidewalk? Yeah, between Laurel Oaks and South Arbery. That should connect that in then. That is the missing piece right there.
Right. Gotcha. Because that'd definitely be really great, I think, for folks from
Not
those.
true. Laurel Oaks right there is missing a piece as well. So just north of Cherry, there'd still be some missing on that side.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
there you have it on the other side. So it really is still walking back and forth. On the
So
sides.
most of it, maybe a couple holes potentially to consider filling in. But I think that would be neat for residents who maybe want to either get to the high school, get down to the Laurel Center Mall, and of course, with some of the things being built now down further south, and even as far as Conterra, once that gets built, it'd be nice to have some pedestrian sort of access along that, and with a little distance from the road. And I know some of it was like, hey, you throw up a raised median in the middle, does it push the cars closer to the people, or maybe there's a way to do both? But I think conceptually, that's something I think would be really neat to be able to say we have.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman Simmons.
Just one other thing that we can do, instead of trying to push out over that hillside, because I know when you run up a little bit further, run into the park there and the dog park behind it. I watched people come out of the dog park and they didn't walk on the sidewalk on the east side of the road. They crossed over and walked along the guardrail. And I'm like, why do they do that? You have this safe passage. And I was really concerned about the dog. But I think that's just one of the items. Instead of maybe pushing the sidewalk over the hillside and having that handrail, well, you need the handrail there. Maybe we can take another 2 feet into the existing roadway and push the entire roadway over to the arbory. You know, just 2 feet, something like that. And then that would give us that extra room for a sidewalk and maybe some sort of buffer strip in there.
Yeah, agreed. Yep, great.
But this is all concept, and that would be decided in design, correct?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yep. Any other questions on the concept presentation?
I do have a couple questions.
Go ahead, Councilman.
So, I literally just wrote that idea down. I just wrote that down. Yeah. So, with reducing the lane, since you were speaking about reducing the lane, that there would, and I did have an issue about reducing the lane also with potential new development may come within this ward here. It may cause further issues down the road with more traffic, more congestion. So it's it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right.
Yeah. But I had a question about a bus pad. Is that a bus pad? Is that for the street or for the sidewalk?
For the sidewalk, it would be a pedestrian bus pad, but you're thinking about the concrete for the
The
bus.
concrete, yeah.
We could do something like that with the project too, if you're seeing issues with the buses.
Yeah. Just so it doesn't bog down on the road on asphalt. And what else did I have? Oh, when you started off, we were talking about issues, and so I noticed that there was some issues that wasn't mentioned, and so I just wanted to know, like when you mentioned the Maryland, this is that book.
Oh, yes.
That's
Yes.
the Maryland MUTCD. So has this changed at any time recently, or?
There is a new federal MUTCD. Maryland hasn't adopted it yet, but I expect that they will soon.
Okay, so this is where you all get all your.
That's where we're
This
getting
is the
standards.
Bible to the highway right here, right?
For all things traffic, yes.
All things traffic. All right, and so I had a question later on for Mr. Miller about that book particular, and the issues that were not mentioned, that was actually mentioned in the in not this presentation but the whole presentation.
Yes.
There were. Let me see. Oh, in section 5, where it came to the environmental, that's section 5-1. And let me go to that real quick. So this where it comes from. Okay.
Councilman,
There
would
was
this question be easier to email? It seems like it's pretty detailed.
Well, actually, it's not. I'm at it right here. the upstream end of the culvert was not found and assumed to be beyond the road, the right of way, based on the desktop mapping. This is down by the Laurel Lakes Lane.
Okay.
What did that consist of? Like when you say that it wasn't.
So since this is conceptual, they were looking at Google, and then when they can overlay that with the waters of the U.S. and those waterway things to see what it is. Like when I was talking about the drainage area for south of Conti, that's how they get that. So they have mapping for the contours of the roadway where the water goes. Now, this is not my area of expertise, so a water person would be able to explain this better. But essentially, they were doing desktop review for where the watersheds would be, where they would go, and what was going. And then when it said it couldn't be found, they also did field work. So they took that out in the field, and then they were looking for different features, like where are the swales, where are the culverts, and where do they go? And sometimes in the field you can't find them. And so that's what that's mentioning. Now, when you go to design, you do that more in detailed.
So like on the road, when you go further up by the, in front of the hospital, like every time that it may rain heavy, that there's like a swell right there, like kind of right after the church going northbound.
Okay.
And, but your study is during when I would assume when it's dry.
This study was when it was dry.
Okay.
Now, there was one location, it was just south of Olive Branch.
Yeah.
Right there,
Yes.
there's
Yep.
obvious ponding even when it was dry. And so right there is a place where that is the one new feature that was being proposed in here, is a inlet there to pull that water out into the existing infrastructure.
Yeah, because it causes major problems during the winter time.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, because it ice up, and that's where I live at. Okay, so and the last thing was in this study there were complaints. Oh, not complaints, but it said that there were parts of the road that were put like signage on the road that didn't need to be on the road.
Yes. So many of the signs that are out there do not meet the MUTCD, and they never did. Also, the pavement markings that are out there, all of the onlys that you have,
Yes.
those don't meet it either, and they never did, because onlys are for through lanes that turn into a left or right turn bay. So very much the way that it is at Conti, those onlys are correct. All the other onlys that are in turn bays, that's not how they're used, but they were added in because it's confusing. As you're going down the road, it's confusing. You can't change the pavement markings easily. So adding an only does make sense until you can get the true fix for the problem.
So
That was more of a Band-Aid. This would be the
okay.
true fix.
Okay, because I just wanted to make sure that we weren't just throwing stuff out on the road because it costs.
Oh, yes.
And I just wanted to make sure that we were going to be clear on that. My last thing is, on the road, when you build a road, there's a crown
Yes.
that should be on the road. Whatever company that wins this bid, sometimes you go with a low bid and you get a low product. Sometimes maybe we might want to kind of go in the middle but any company that lays a road should know that there should be a crown in the road. If you have a crown in the road, you won't have a spill, a pile up, because it will just flow into where it's supposed to go.
It does, but it flows to the low point. So even roads have low points, and if the ground beside it is higher, that's when you need the inlets.
Okay.
So this road definitely has a crown, and even where we're talking about changing the lane configuration, if we're shifting things, the crown would need to be shifted as well, because you don't want the wheel path on top of that crown,
Okay.
because that causes some safety things that people don't necessarily notice. Their car will pull one way or the other. So those things would be looked at in design for sure. But as far as drainage is, we saw two things out there. The one inlet that really needed to be there over by Olive Branch. But then there was also quite a few clogged inlets. And so part of this would definitely be maintenance, cleaning all of those out. And if those are cleaned out, the water's then going to go where it's supposed to go instead of pooling on the road.
Okay. And my last thing is,
Are you sure
my
this is the third last
suggestion,
time?
I came prepared. Because I next time I do that. But real quick, my suggestion, because there were many different years of installation for those turn signals. I believe in being proactive instead of reactive, and with you having these multiple years of these lights from the north end to the south end of Van Dusen, you have multiple years of installation. So if we were to be proactive and just did it all at one time, then you would have, when there's time to have to review those or check them, they should be all on the same accord. It's almost like changing all the light bulbs at the same time, So that's my suggestion.
To replace all of the traffic signals?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mills.
If I could add one thing.
Go ahead, Director.
Roadway used to be, that was handed over to the city from the county. So that's why, there aren't, when we took that over, a lot of the improvements, we did add the trail along there. We did add the roadway and things of that nature. The entire roadway was supposed to be paved over at one time. And that was when I sat on the other side of the table, per se, but it didn't happen. So now you have the inlets and everything along that trail, and they run underneath the trail to a swale, okay, on the east side. But the lights and things of that nature, we inherited a lot of that from the county. Yes.
And this will long-term fix all of that. Other questions from the council members that haven't asked yet? None from Ms. Johnson? Ms. Clark?
I have a few less than Councilmember Mills, but just kidding. So I saw on page, first of all, thank you very much for being so thoughtful and detailed. I saw a lot of considerations in here that I've worked with Arlington County that I think were really prevalent and important for us to have here in the city of Laurel. So thank you for that. I also noticed on page 26, which I appreciate, a mention that we need to increase the compliance of the push buttons for the walkways. I've been saying this honestly when I was a resident only. And I know in DC they have, when you press that button, you're able to hear a voice, because if someone they're not able to see visually, they would know when they're supposed to cross. I have not experienced, I actually took time to walk around because I walk in that area living there and pressing all the buttons, and none of them said anything. So I was very disappointed. I mentioned it back then. So thank you so much for putting that in there, because we really do need that. And in addition to that, also, a lot of residents have mentioned, and I've also noticed, that we need to increase the bike lanes and make them a little bit more visible and blatant, kind of like, even if it's a green stripe or it's a Maryland design stripe, something that people know. They usually divide it off so that that's the bike lane. I know that parking can be a challenge here, but we have great parking, but at the same time, people are able to park on the streets and things like that. And usually those bike lanes are in that same area. So I don't know if you're able to consider that as well, just making, Laurel even more bike friendly, and also walkability here, because a lot of our residents, they tend to work in the place that's close to their area, or they try to not use the cars as much as possible. So that would be ideal. In addition to that, I had a question regarding, I wanted to know, with the suggestions that you had for the medians, do you think that any of these recommendations will have any impact on the wildlife that we have here? Have you seen any of that while you were making these recommendations?
What do you mean by impact? on wildlife?
Sometimes I think when we make adjustments, it can like shift, either the wildlife into a different area. I know some of our
Oh.
residents have that concern.
This is curb.
Okay,
So it would be the same as a sidewalk height.
Okay.
So we're not talking about something high, we're talking about something very low.
okay.
And potentially, depending on how wide it is, we may be able to put grass in there, tree, make it more boulevard-like.
Okay, great. I really do love the idea of the permeable pavement. I think it's wonderful. Even if I've seen some that, when it's permeable, it goes back into our environment and helps to water things. So I love that a lot. And the last thing, I just wondered, I noticed while reading through the packet and the information, it seemed like the top things that you noticed regarding that was the walkability and safety for the residents, the traffic aggression that you mentioned, and possible ADA compliance concerns. Were those a top, or did you see any additional to that?
Driver confusion. So you have aggression, but you also have driver confusion. When we were doing the field review, because of the traffic signals too, there were cues that didn't need to be there, that were there, but those have since been taken care of. So that was one thing that was able to be taken care of very quickly, but the not meeting the driver expectation. When drivers get confused, that's when things happen that you don't want to happen.
Great, thank you. One last thing I forgot on the list. I have noticed with residents, particularly in the areas going Cherry Lane, close to Van Dusen, that area, and also Baltimore Avenue and Cherry Lane. There are two bus stop areas right there that we don't have a bus stop. We have one across the street by the AAA, but that one closest to the AAA, people are always sitting on the curb or in an unsafe place. Mind you, I live in that area, so it's like, the apartment complexes and the real estate probably don't want people just hanging out, but they also don't have anywhere to sit while they're waiting for the bus. I noticed that area, and then also going down Van Dusen as well. That one doesn't have one. It's more closer to the park on the right-hand side. You probably wouldn't even notice there's a bus stop there, but I've just seen so many people that are standing right there that don't have anywhere like to sit or a shelter or anything. So just to
Right,
consider.
And some of that, we didn't really consider like bus shelters
Right.
or benches. We could, that definitely could be part of this project. What we were looking at is there a bus pad? So is there a flat space for someone to get off the bus onto? And that's an ADA thing. But then also, is there pedestrian connectivity? The bus lets you off and now you're in the middle of nowhere. How do you get someplace? That's part of the little pieces of sidewalk that we're showing in the project is connecting to bus pads.
Okay, yeah, I
That's
think
the point of those.
right down that Van Dusen area, there isn't like sidewalk there either on that right-hand side. And one last thing is with the benches, if you do consider benches, your nerve. If you do consider benches, I've worked with another municipality where they take plastic bags and you're able to recycle them and make them into benches. So that I think would be a wonderful idea. I've worked with them and it's worked out really well. It also encourages residents to decrease that plastic use, but we're able to make them into benches. Thank you.
Back to the buses too. There's a couple bus stop locations that exist today that we were proposing to move. I'm wondering if the one you're specifically talking about is one of them. The one by Church in the, let's say, southbound direction is one that we wanted to move to the other side. I'm sorry, Cherry is wanted to move to the other side
I think
of
it
Cherry
might be,
Lane.
it's right next to the lake and
Yeah, there's no sidewalk to it. We could put sidewalk down to it, but it doesn't really go to anything. And if it was on the other side of Cherry, it would.
no, these two sides have sidewalks.
Okay.
Yeah, one's right by the lake and the other one's right in
I
front of the
believe
AAA.
Councilwoman Clark is talking about a separate area from this study.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Thank you.
Again, thank you for your presentation. There are a bunch of appendices that went with the presentation that were too large to send all in one email. I believe those were emailed to all the council members. This is going to be an ongoing project, so if you have further questions, please feel free to email. And Director, we will look forward to the bid recommendations for the engineering work on this. Moving on to agenda item number 3, ordinance number 2029, an ordinance amending the general operating budget and capital improvement program of the Mayor and City Council of Laurel, Maryland for fiscal year July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025, and to provide an effective date. Director Saylor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the City Council, Mayor Sidnor. This first amendment to our FY 2025 operating budget and CIP actually has no change to the operating budget. This is a proposal to reduce an emergency repair project by $12,000 and add that money to the Virginia Manor Court project, which will be before you tonight to consider the award to the contractor. So we were just shy on the bids, and at this time consulted with Mr. Miller, and we feel like we can comfortably take that it's more important to move Virginia Manor Court forward than to leave that money remaining in the emergency repair account. So I would respectfully request at the meeting that you would suspend the rules and approve this ordinance in order to award the bid recommendation for Virginia Manor Court. And that's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Director. This sounds like a pretty easy transactional accounting ordinance. Are there any questions from the council?
I have a question on that.
Go ahead, Mr. Mills.
The Virginia Manor Court, that's on the, what is that, the southbound side, like right there on where the old Conti on that side, Old Conti
It's
Road?
Yes, sir.
Conti around to
That's on that
Virginia
area
Manor.
right there, right?
Yeah.
So it's Conterra. off
Conterra. Oh, yeah, Conterra and Conti in that area. All right.
We don't own the roads to get to it, but
Right.
that portion of the court is in the city. And it's a lot of auto recyclers and
Yeah.
things of that nature that they come in with their trucks loaded with cars and a lot of car carriers and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And we'll be hearing more on this project on
Yes, sir.
agenda item number 6, right?
Yes.
So any
Yeah.
further questions on ordinance number 2029?
Okay. Yes.
Hearing none, if it's okay with the council, this item will be placed on the agenda for the Mayor and City Council meeting on September 9th. Agenda item number 4, bid recommendation for 4th and 5th Street roadway improvements. Department of Public Works Director Tim Miller, you have the floor again.
Thank you. Department of Public Works is requesting approval for construction project LA 24004, 4th and 5th Street improvements. This project includes the milling and overlay of concrete sidewalk, pedestrian ramps, concrete curbing, striping, and roadway signage of 4th Street from Main Street to Montgomery Street, and 5th Street from Main Street to Gorman Avenue in the city of Laurel. Bid results at a sealed bid opening at 10 a.m. on July 31st, 2024. The city received 6 bids. The bids received ranging from lowest to highest are as follows, and they were read aloud at that meeting. E&R Services, $191,269,000.25. Ross Excavating, $226,274 and no cents. Espina Paving, $237,865 and 25 cents. American Asphalt Paving, $241,868.75. ECM Corporation, $281,105. Vino Construction, LLC, $373,786,059. Funding for this project is provided in the adopted FY 2025 CIP, 4th Street and 5th Street improvement projects. It's recommended that the contract for this project be awarded to E&R Services, a minority business enterprise, disadvantaged business enterprise, and small business enterprise from Lanham, Maryland. for their bid of $191,269.25 with an additional contingency of $18,730.75 for a total of $210,000. E&R Services, Inc. has previously completed projects for the city, with the last one being the alley that runs between 6th and 7th Street and terminates in front of the old high school.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Any questions from the council? Seeing no questions, is there any opposition to putting this on the agenda on September 9th? Hearing none, this bid recommendation will be added to the agenda for the September 9th meeting of the Mayor and City Council. Agenda item number 5 is bid recommendation for Compton Avenue Alley improvements. Again, Director Miller, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. The Department of Public Works is requesting approval for construction project LA 25001, Compton Alley Street Improvements. This project includes the construction of a new concrete apron, sidewalks, curbing, an 8-inch and 12-inch thick reinforced concrete alley. The alley is to be 10 feet wide, with a portion of it being stamped concrete, similar to the one that we previously constructed. The work will take place between Compton Avenue and Talbot Avenue, running in the rears of 600 through 608 4th Street in the city of Laurel. At a sealed bid opening at 10 a.m. on August 1st, the city received a total of 6 bids for this project. The bids received, ranging from lowest to highest, are as follows. SFMS LLC, $72,550,000.75. E&R Services, $77,717. Olney Masonry Corporation, $92,445. Espina Paving, $116,696.25. INL Construction, $149,064. And Patent Construction, $175,878. Funding for this project is provided for in the adopted FY 2025 CIP Compton Alley Improvement Project. It is recommended that the contract for this project be awarded to SFMF LLC, a minority business, disadvantaged business enterprise, and small business enterprise from Beechcraft Avenue in Gaithersburg, Maryland, for their bid of $72,550.75 with an additional contingency of $7,449.25 for a total of $80,000. SFMS has previously completed projects for the city, the last one being 312 Main Street, the parking lot there that has the impervious paving and new curbing and entrances and things of that nature.
Thank you, Director. Are there questions from council on the bid recommendation? Councilman Simmons?
And I previously confirmed with city staff, but just for residents, I think this is in concept similar to the concrete alleyway between 6th and 7th you actually alluded to a little earlier. So I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I think just from looking at the map, the reason we're converting this to concrete alleyway is there's some services that trucks need to deliver down that pathway. Is that
They
what that's
do.
saying?
Currently, our garbage trucks do back down this alley, and that's the reason for the improvement. There are a number of private alleys throughout the city, but this has to be one
That we have to
has a
service with the trucks and such?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, and that's why it's a little different. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilman Mills?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, where did you get the contingency from? Like, how did y'all come up with that number?
I usually use a rough number of 10%.
Okay, okay.
all. Yeah.
I was just wondering if that was
Yep.
it. Thank you.
Further questions from the council on the bid recommendation?
Yes, I have one.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I think you and I spoke in April or May about this area. Thank you for answering the residents' questions. I remember then, I think you said that there were some humps and puddles that the resident had issues with this. Was that the same area?
That's the same area,
Okay.
and we moved over there right away and graded it out
Yeah.
for them. Yes.
I think you said there was 95% covered or it was worked through, but this is going to kind of seal that up and fix everything 100%?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, I was looking through my email, I was like, I feel like we talked about this, but I just wanted to make sure it was that same area. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for fixing
Yeah.
this.
Councilman Johnson attended that meeting with the community, and I could say that it was nothing, 100% for it. They were really enthusiastic. We even had one lady who volunteered to use her stamp to, get the approvals for all the other residents there, and she was the ringleader. And we have one woman to cut back some shrubs, and I met with her today on the corner, 600 4th Street, and they're all enthusiastic. When is this coming? He said, watch us tonight. Okay? So, yeah.
Thank you. Is there agreement from the council to move this forward to the meeting on September 9th? Thank you very much. Our final bid recommendation for Public Works is Virginia Manor Court street improvements.
Okay. The Department of Public Works is requesting approval for construction project LA 24005, Virginia Manor Court street improvements. The project includes the milling and overlay and placement of a geotextile fabric, repair of concrete sidewalks, pedestrian ramps, concrete curbing, and striping for Virginia Manor Court in the city of Laurel. At a sealed bid opening at 10 a.m. on July 31st, 2024, the city received a total of 6 bids for this project. The bids received range from lowest to highest are as follows. E&R Services, $119,367.50. SFMS, $121,845.00. American Asphalt Paving, $132,202.25. Espina Paving Incorporated, $145,585.00. Ross Contracting, $151,045, and ECM Corporation, $177,725. Funding for this project is provided in the amended FY 2025 CIP, Virginia Manor Court Street Improvement Project. It's recommended that the contract for this project be awarded to E&R Services, a minority business enterprise, disadvantaged business enterprise, and small business enterprise from Lanham, Maryland, for their bid of $119,367.50, with an additional contingency of $11,632.50, for a total of $131,000. E&R Services, again, has previously completed projects for the city, which include the alley that we were talking about.
Thank you, Director. Questions from the council? Mr. Mills?
In that area, well, first, you used the term geotextile fabric. Why did you use that term for this project?
It's what we do is this city gets a lot of truck traffic. And the last project that we did and added this geotextile fabric, what it does is it helps to bridge the load across pavement. That's the first thing it does, okay? The second thing it does, in bridging that load, it adds an equivalent of 1.5 inches of pavement. If we added another 1.5 inches of pavement, it strengthens the pavement that much.
The base.
So what I tend to do is to install this in areas where we have heavy truck traffic.
Right.
The last area that we installed it at was the where Carroll Fuels
Right.
fills up, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
have where First Street sort of makes the bend there. That whole area, we use the same thing. And if you go down there today, I mean, it's been a year. The street looks perfect. Okay. It just adds a little bit of extra strength. I mean, the city of Laurel is all clay, which tends to be a little softer. And so that's why I like to get it in these areas where there is heavy truck traffic. And this Virginia Manor Court gets a lot of the, as I said, the
That heavy.
trucks and things of that nature in there.
So does that mean that you're going to take up the whole road to lay that down first?
What we'll do is we'll mill it. We'll mill the road, mill the entire surface. And then right before they get ready to pave, they actually bring a tractor, and this has like a 12-foot roll on it.
Right.
And they just roll it down, and they put the tack coat. They put 2 tack coats. They put one underneath that causes it to stick, and then they'll put another tack coat on top of it. And then they'll put 2 inches of paving over it.
Okay. See, I used to use that for my landscaping, James.
Further questions from the council? Is there any opposition to adding this to the agenda for September 9th? Hearing none, this will be added. Thank you very much, Director.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 7, purchase requisition for Rehrig Vision Service Verification Hardware Software, Environmental Programs Manager. Ms. Blair, you have the floor.
Good evening. So before you, I have presented a bid recommendation to purchase additional software for the existing Rehrig Vision inventory system that we currently have. This software will include a camera system and an RFID reader that will enable us to tailor our education and outreach in a more meaningful way to our residents, meaning that will take the camera system can take pictures of issues that a resident may have, whether it's trash overflow, recycling in the trash, compostables in recycling, or whatever it is. We'll be able to address those issues in a timely fashion. It also frees up the driver. There's no paperwork involved. They hit a button, we determine what we want them to look at. They hit a button, a picture is taken, the RFID tag reads the address, and so now we have that information that we can have a meaningful conversation with the resident as opposed to just saying, you got to fix this. It also will help Public Works with route optimization if they choose to do that, because it'll give us the information of how much tonnage is picked up on certain routes. So they'll know that 100 homes in this area picked up, 5 tons. Whereas in this route, 100 homes, they're only picking up three tons. So it gives them that ability to manage their routes in a way that is most helpful to them. It also enables us to work on our compliance. Now is a critical time that Prince George's County just completed their waste composition study. They did that in 2022. They just finished publishing it. And I think I had sent information that EPA is saying 24% of MSW is actually organics. Well, for Prince George's County, they said MSW is 29% and was actually compostable, which would include yard debris, that this is going to the landfill is 31%. So there's a lot of wiggle room. In addition, 22% is recyclable. So this is what's going into our landfills, and this is what we want to capture at the municipal level, because not only should it not be going to the landfill for environmental reasons, but also there's that cost that the recycling is $27 per ton, composting is $25 a ton, landfilling is anywhere between $84 and $72 a ton. So from our perspective, in addition to the environment, that the avenue which I'm all for, reducing methane gas emissions at the landfill and composting it, there's also the financial, there's also the compliance, there is getting everyone to kind of be able to do the best that they can. And this is a tool that will help us now and in the future. You have any questions?
Are there any questions from the council? Mr. Mills?
I just wanted to say I got my magnet.
Thank you.
I want to be the ambassador of composting. I did see a study. I wanted to go, like, when I traveled out of town, I wanted to see, like, who else was doing this. And there are some states that's doing this before us. And some real unique videos to show the constituents like how important this is. And actually, when you just said the numbers just now, like I've been up on top of that mountaintop.
That's our next field trip is to the landfill.
They would enjoy. You can take selfies with eagles and everything. You want to see some eagles, that's where they are. Yeah. It's like you said, it's like $70 to $80 to dump there. But over at when you go compost, what was that number? It was like 25.
25 and 27 at our county MRF for our recycling.
Yeah, if you could put those numbers together for us so that we can share it with our constituents,
Yes.
like to let them know, because we are the ones that's paying for that, footing that bill.
Yeah.
So if we were to compost more to reduce that number, and then we would be spending less by going to the compost and so forth.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Additional questions? Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Can you just find out how much it's going to cost? So it's on the recommendation, though, just for the public and know, and what you recommend. Complete the report.
I'm sorry, say that again,
Complete the
sir?
recommendation of the report. Just how much it's going to cost the city.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. So this is a one-time cost for the hardware. That includes the RFID reader plus the camera, and that is $99,300. There is a software cost that's an annual cost for 8 units, which you can change from truck to truck. They are changeable, and that is $14,400 a year. And so what I'm recommending is the hardware cost for a one-time fee of $99, and then 1 year the software cost for a total purchase of $113,700.
Thank you, Ms. Blair. Ms. Clark has a question?
I actually have 3.
Okay.
I'm saying it up front. So thank you for this. I think this is really wonderful, and I appreciate and love the fact that we're working with our outstanding DPW department to do this. It's a wonderful thing to do in the city of Laurel. My first question, for that $99,300 purchase that you said is a one-time fee.
Yes, one-time
Does that
fee.
include any type of insurance in case any of the hardware breaks, or if something happens to it, do they replace it?
Oh, yes, there's a warranty.
Okay.
It is a 5-year warranty on the cameras and the RFIDs.
I know that
And
stuff is being on that truck.
That 99 also includes the installation and the education and uploading of all the software and onboarding for us.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I was surprised. I was like, wow, a one-time fee? I'm surprised at that, but that's good. If they do any upgrades or anything, does that include that as
Yes.
well in that warranty? That's
Yes,
perfect.
that's included under the software annual cost.
Okay. I noticed with the software, it seems like it'd probably be about $1,200 a month and maybe $150 per truck per month. So that seems pretty reasonable for this, for the software. That also includes upgrades.
Yes.
Any, do they have like an IT department, someone you can reach out to?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Rehrig, we've worked with them for a long time. They have a very robust IT department and support service, and everything's cloud-based, so
Oh, good.
that helps a lot, that we don't have to worry about servers going down.
Okay.
And all of our current carts are already in the inventory system. So as we get them from Rehrig, they already put them in the inventory. When they're deployed out to the street, there's an app that gets scanned, and then it is now at your house. So the RFID tag says that it has now been delivered to this location. And that's how they read it. That's how they'll know what is being picked up. So all of the carts are RFID enabled.
Is the customer service, like, I know this is detailed, but 24 hours? I know that our DPW department works at hours that maybe we're not even up. And if something happens, is this company available to fix?
So that's what's really cool about Rehrig Pacific is that they have East Coast, West Coast, they have Midwest. So they do have service available.
That's good.
But hopefully DPW will not be picking up trash at 12 o'clock at night, because I think Director Miller would be a little, to say nothing to the crews. The crews would be quite fussy, but we could get to them. We could get our questions answered, yeah.
Perfect. And my last question is, would this effort can it go towards a Sustainable Maryland certification?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, and so, it's information that we can send out as we're promoting the composting, and it has a lot of different, it has a lot of different benefits, I think.
Okay. Thank you for researching this. We appreciate it.
Ms. Blair, I have a question that I think I know the answer to. But just for clarification for those at home, when we're saying the RFID, that's that barcode that's on the front of all of our cans, correct?
Actually, it is in the handle of the cans, but some of them you actually will see on the front, yeah.
Okay.
But it's in the handle, so when it gets picked up, whether it's picked up by a machine or whether it's picked up by a person, it will read the RFID. And then the cameras are mounted in the hopper, so we can capture things that shouldn't be in the trash. So, that they can capture in the hopper. They're not going to go in the hopper, but we're at least going to have the picture when we send it to the resident, say, hey, we just tipped your can and there was, something that shouldn't have been in your recycling. And then they have it on the side. So if there's overflow, the cameras on the side will be able to pick up and take the picture. And then, of course, the RFID is identifying that address.
Thank you. Mr. Simmons?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you. I know we had a meeting of some length that was helpful to understand how all these pieces fit together. So first of all, thank you for your time on that. And for me, what my takeaway is, we're definitely asking DPW to exert some additional effort in their normal things. And what this allows it to do is to take as little as possible, really make as life easier as we can for them. So that's one of the things I see in it that I like, and also allows us to fulfill what Ordinance 2010 with some of those compliance requirements.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Thank you, that was all.
And it also helps our crews on the back. So it keeps them out of having to kind of have interactions, with residents, hey, why aren't you doing this? Because it's all going to be at staff level. Staff will review it and will make recommendations. If you have overflow in your recycling, we'll send you, hey, did you know you could get more recycling carts, and we'll get one to you this week. So it's a gentle approach, but it'll help our crews on the back as well as our driver not having to write things down.
Thank you. Any further questions from the council? Hearing none, is there any opposition from the council to put this on the September 9th agenda? Thank you, Ms. Blair. Our final agenda item of the evening, agenda item number 8, bid recommendation for backup generator replacement, project phase 1, Department of Community Resources and Emergency Management Director Cornwall, you have the floor.
Was a mouthful, right? All right. Good evening, Mr. President, Mayor, and City Council members. Before you is a memo dated August 15th, 2024, recommending your approval of the subaward agreement between the City of Laurel and the Maryland Department of Emergency Management regarding a reimbursable grant with a hazard mitigation piece for our emergency backup generators. The project will consist of replacing aging diesel power generators with high-efficiency, state-of-the-art natural gas power generators at 5 of our critical facilities, which will be the Multi-Service Center, the Police Department, our Public Works Complex, our Maintenance Center for Parks and Recreation, and the Armory. This project will be completed in 2 phases. The first phase consisting of electrical assessment and coordination with BG&E for any required gas service upgrades. And phase 2 is slated for the construction and installation of the generators. The Federal Emergency Management Agency has approved phase 1 of the project at $245,399.25. And this is a match grant, so 90% is a federal share at $271 and I can't even talk tonight. I think we got the same thing going on. $200,071 and I can't even say this, $271,230.75, and 10% of the city's share at $25,831.50. Funding for phase 1 has been approved in our federal fiscal year 25 CIP. So I'd like to thank you for your time and consideration, and glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Director. Before I open it up to the council, I did want to clarify, I know there were a lot of numbers there.
Yes.
The cost to taxpayers from our budget is roughly $25,000. The rest is being covered through grants that we've already obtained.
Correct. So 90% is covered by the federal grant, and then the match is the, like you said, the $25,000 for the city.
Open up to questions from the council. Mr. Mills?
I was just wondering why the Petro Center wasn't thrown in there.
So this project has been on and off since 2018. This would be the third attempt applying for this grant, and we've had some lessons learned over the years. So typically for these grants to get approved by FEMA, the generators have to be 19 years old or older. So it is a process. Okay. So we did have some lessons learned as we went through this approval process. Like I said, this is the third attempt.
Okay. So next time we have, Councilwoman Clark have a venue, we don't have to worry about a blackout, huh? All right. That's cool.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Mr. Simmons?
And I think I'd already been in contact with staff, but just sort of to mention, I know the state has signaled it's moving away from the natural gas infrastructure. And I know a lot of it ties to what you just described. This grant's been ongoing for a bit. I think we'd be interested, and maybe it would be helpful to council too, to get BGE's feedback on what they think that outlook is, because I know this phase is to sort of assess what's actually going to be involved before actually getting the things. So I'd be curious to sort of say, what do they think that outlook? Maybe it's the case that at least the life of these generators is going to be fine for whatever infrastructure is there, and we're in the clear, but it'd be sad to sort of get them up and running, and then whatever 5 years after that, it doesn't matter anyways, because the natural gas service isn't here. I don't imagine that's the case, but I'd be interested to hear what those feedback is.
Yeah, we can add that.
Thank you, Councilman. Further questions from the council?
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
One statement. Thank you for being proactive and not reactive, as we learned in the 2 classes that I took with you with FEMA. And with the update on the equipment, are we considering that these locations, in case of an emergency, those would be ones that would be used, or is that already in place, just to clarify?
So we do have some things in place, and of course with the multi-service center opening up next week. So I'm sure you've been out there and taken the tour, and then obviously you'll see next Tuesday. But the multi-service center will be our primary shelter that we'll be able to use on the gym side. But also the Armory and the DePietro Center have also been reserved for us to use as shelters if we need to, because Red Cross has to come out and approve them. So once we get the multi-service center up and running, Red Cross will be able to come out and do a survey, and then we'll be Red Cross approved for that that. Some of our other centers are the generators is just because they're critical infrastructure for us. So the police department obviously has to be operational 24/7. So that's why these buildings are just considered critical infrastructure for the city to maintain the operations that we need to do, whether it be snow removal or whatever that may need to happen during emergencies. So that's why we're looking at these facilities to get these backup generators.
Thank you for doing that, and thank you for working on the grants. That's tremendous help for the city to have this money, especially at 90%. Commendable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the council? I believe council is in agreement. We will add this bid recommendation to the September 9th meeting of the Mayor and City Council. With no further business on tonight's agenda, this meeting is adjourned.
Excuse me.